Hello and welcome to Business Sense. I'm Ralph Rivas. For today's episode, we have Dito CME President Eric Alberto and Chief Finance Officer Jojo Ong. Now, Dito CME, of course, Dito CME's subsidiary, of course, is the third telco. So let's talk about that first. Now, Sir Eric, now rolling out the third telco is no easy task at all, especially with established giants like Globe and Smart PLDT to compete with. And of course, there's the pandemic happening as well while Dito was rolling out. Tell us about that. What's the latest update and how's it been like during this pandemic?
For having me and Jojo on your show. It's a good opportunity for us to share with your audience, no, the goings on that's happening with D2CME, particularly our investments. Of course, the biggest one is in the telco, and then we have a number of digital businesses. No? Now, going back to your question of the telco, a lot has happened ever since the uh, the third telco was granted a CPCN sometime in 2018. The rollout of a brand new 4G, 5G network happened in January of 2020, right just before the pandemic started. No? And the network rollout happened on that year. Fast forward to today, the telco has put up and put on commercial stream about 4,000 towers already, implying that the telco successfully built about 2,000 towers a year. And I must say that's a record feat, no? Considering that the industry in total was hard up to put up 1,500 towers combined uh, historically. No? So that's quite a feat considering that it was a pandemic year. No? Now, on the milestones that you mentioned, we started commercial operations in March of 2021, or 10 months ago, a little over 10 months ago. Um, in May of last year as well, the telco got secured a 25-year franchise extension from 2023 to 2048. Also, that ensures its regulatory license to operate until 2048. Um, as of September of last year, Dito Telco successfully hurdled the second year technical audit. We're the only telco player that is subjected to regulatory technical audit with basically two hurdles. One is to meet 55 Mbps speed, and the other is a progression of population coverage hurdles, starting from 37% population coverage on year one, all the way to 84% by year five. No? And on the second year, the dictates of the audit requires that the telco meet 51%, and the telco did almost 53% coverage. No? By year end, um, the data telecommunity is present in over 500 cities and municipalities all over the country, about 53-54% population coverage. It has, as I mentioned earlier, 4,000 cell towers in operation. Uh, it has over 20,000 fiber optic, 20,000 kilometers fiber optic backhauling such cellular towers all over the country. Um, we've got over 20,000 consumer touch endpoints. About 12% of the revenues are generated through digital means, uh, through non-legacy person-to-person type of applications and platforms. And last but not least, the telco actually closed 2021 with 5.3 million subscribers. So that, in a nutshell, has been the development on the telco.
Mhm. Now, just a follow up on the rollout as well, because when I covered the bidding, really ang tataas ng promises, 'di ba? Parang billions of pesos will be uh, spent on year one, year two, year three, year four, year five, and yung coverage. I mean, it's really a tall order to be the third telco. And I want to ask, how's Dito and Dito CME financially naman, Sir Jojo? Kaya ba or ano bang any updates on that? And were the commitments recognized despite the pandemic?
There were commitments made when we got the CPCN, but there were a combination of assets or investments to be made, and as well as the performance itself. So I think the emphasis must be on the performance. We have spent in this about 60 almost 66 billion pesos, no, in terms of assets for the full year of 2021, and it is a little behind what was committed in terms of the asset spending as per the CPCN, but we have already passed the two NTC audits in terms of performance and coverage. So I think that's the really more important thing. If we are able to achieve those targets with less investments, then that should be viewed as an effective management performance. So again, that aside, we will continue to invest as needed in order to achieve the committed targets, both in terms of coverage and both in terms of the minimum average speed. We've already exceeded the minimum average speed of 55 Mbps. And the third audit, which is coming up in July, also requires a same minimum speed of 55 Mbps, but with a bigger coverage of about 70% in terms of population coverage. So we're confident that we'll be able to hit that. And there is almost a direct relationship between coverage. In fact, there is a direct relationship between coverage and the number of networks that we build, ergo the number of assets or capex that will be invested, which is roughly about $1 billion per year. So, to your second question, is that how are we financially in terms of funding? There are two aspects, as most people know, in terms of funding, in terms of capex. There's both the equity side and on the debt side. Well, there's a third portion, of course, which is the internally generated cash from operations, ergo sales, right? But since sales are still quite low, understandably, the bulk of the funding for the network build, which is not going to slow down. In fact, it's going to continue to speed up, limited only by the extent by which it is physically limited in terms of regulatory, meaning permitting, and the physical time and motion it requires to build the network itself. It's a physical build, right? So in terms of funding, therefore, it will rely really on debt and equity. Now, equity is really from the two shareholders, the Udena Group, or specifically Dito CME, who is the holding company, and that's part of the reason why Dito CME is undergoing at the moment a capital raising exercise in terms of its share rights offer. The intent of which, the bulk of which, 80%, which is declared in the info memo, is that it will be used to really put into DitoTel as part of its equity investment into the DitoTel. Now, needless to say, the other side of the equation in terms of equity coming from China Telecom is not really a problem. China Telecom is one of the largest telecoms in the world, so I think cash is not going to be a problem. So that leaves just the debt part. In terms of the debt part, and we have, I think, mentioned this also in the past, is that we have already secured firm commitments from funders, all foreign banks. There is no local bank that is participating, except for a branch of a foreign bank, but generally 99% of it will be from foreign banks, to the extent in excess of $4 billion US. So we are at the moment, we have not signed any of the definitive agreements. The loan agreements are still being drafted by the lawyers, but negotiations as far as the commercial terms and conditions are already completed. And it's just a matter of just, again, signing the loan agreements, which will happen hopefully soon as the lawyers are done with the execution documents. Now, in the meanwhile, what has happened since we started building the network in 2020, people will ask, okay, you've not yet signed the term loan, then what was funding all of that capex? I just mentioned 66 billion worth of assets since as of probably end of 2021. The two of the lenders in that term loan club deal, it's a project finance facility, have agreed to lend us a bridge loan. So that the bridge loan is currently, which we've drawn already in excess of $1 billion US, is what's has funded and will continue to fund the capex build of Ditotel until such time that the term loan comes into place, in which case it will take out the bridge facility. So I'm just explaining how the funding flow
Mm.
works.
Now, what's your response to, I mean, yeah, ang laki ng kailangan gastusin for the third telco. What's your response to those jitters na, I don't know, parang magkakaroon ng issues when it comes to funding? Because of course, Uden is taking a hit because of the pandemic, looking at the financials of the company, of the holding company overall. What's your response to those concerns?
Well, okay. First, we need to put things in its to be objectively speaking, right? I mean, Udena Corp is in a different situation, or the Udena Group, not Udena Corp, but the Udena Group of companies is a different situation because these are subjected to the usual credit evaluations, and they're done they're done at the group level. Now, I don't want to talk too much about the rest of Udena Group because that's not. It's not, I guess, not
Mm.
appropriate to discuss that. But
Yes,
I'm
yes.
trying to make a distinction between Ditotel and the rest of the Udena Group. Ditotel is a joint venture, no, between China Telecom and the Udena Group. It is the only major joint venture in the group. Okay, I say group, but I say
Mm.
that lightly, because in reality, whilst in terms of shareholdings, of course, the Udena Group through Dito CME owns the lion's share of Ditotel. China Telecom is not a immaterial partner, so it has brought in it brings with it its technical expertise, not to mention its economic and political clout in the capital markets, which is also the reason why we're able to generate that kind of debt. And as I said, the banks that are going to be lending Ditotel are 100%, or except for that one branch I mentioned, is going to be entirely foreign. So as far as they're concerned, they have no issue with the credit rating of Ditotel or the credit evaluation of
Mm.
Ditotel.
Mm. Now, another issue I have to ask this, Sir Eric. The another issue that's been going around. Well, last year naman is foreign ownership. The Senate approved easing foreign restrictions. Will we see more China in Dito Telecom or Dito CME
Well,
or
first of all,
other players?
yeah. First of all, I'd like to say that the uh,
PSA.
the new legislation, which is yet to be passed and I think approved by the president to be effective, but it's been passed by the Senate, is a step in the right direction, particularly for an industry like telco, which is really one of the most, if not the most, capital intensive industries that you will find nowadays, particularly the market demanding global class digital experience and technologies that that will be within their reach. No? Now, such kind of capital expenditure is demanded, particularly in a situation where you see transitioning technologies, no? From 4G moving into 5G. Um, Now, having said that, closer to Dito telecommunity, the legislation, as we understand it, prohibits greater ownership beyond 40% for state-owned enterprises. No? And China Telecom, our partner, is a state-owned enterprise, so therefore they are capped at their current 40%. But having said that, to your point, the industry being capital intensive really gives the Dito telecommunity far more options in terms of widening its capital base down the road with the new legislation.
Mm. So, sir, I gotta push this a little further. You're
Chinese or
open
no
to
Chinese, right?
so Chinese
Chinese
or
or
no
no
Chinese?
China
Uh,
or other foreign investors, right?
Yeah, sorry. Can I just add a little bit, maybe just to put
yes.
again more context to what Eric said. Remember, there are two entities, right? There's Ditotel and then there's Dito CME. So, as far as Ditotel is concerned, which is the corporation that actually holds the CPCN, The ownership structure at the moment stands. So there is no current move or even plans to even change that structure. I recall I mentioned earlier about the capital structure, which is a combination of debt and equity. You'll note that there was no discussion about raising more equity. In fact, there is none at the moment. There is no run other than the debt that we've already sort
Mm.
of negotiated. There is no current plan to raise any more capital through the equity side. I said the
Well,
debt. In fact, reality is that we will probably not draw the entire 4 billion facility. I think based on our projections, we probably need slightly less, which means that if we input all of those equity structures into place, both the debt and equity, obviously we have a long-term set of projections. It's more than sufficient already to bring the company forward. I'm talking about Ditotel. So the PSA once it what comes into fruition in terms of law, as Eric said, makes the options more. Meaning we now have the ability to we meaning Ditotel, Dito Telecommunity has the ability to raise equity should it need, in terms of getting more investors in. Remember, debt is not anymore an issue, but in terms of equity, should it decide, and again there is none at the moment, should it decide to raise any more equity, it can now attract both foreign and local. Because at the moment at 60-40, they're already the 60% ownership of the two CMEs and plus the other minority Filipino shareholders are already at the maximum level. So theoretically, if without the PSA, then foreigners could no longer come in. So with the enactment of the revised PSA, foreign funds, in fact, not just strategic investors, but even professional funds can come in. The likes of Fidelity, Capital, etc., all of these things. But of course, as Eric said, there is a restriction. The PSA has a restriction on the state-owned, the SOCCs, the state-owned and controlled corporations, of which Chinatel is. So, in theory, not in theory, but in reality, Chinatel cannot increase its stake if the 60% shareholder does not increase its stake conversely, because it needs to maintain the 40-60 split. Now, in terms of Dito CME, the rule also essentially applies because it is the majority owner of the Dito Tel. So again, there is from the holding company's perspective, theoretically, it could be owned 100% by foreigners. There is no
Mm.
SOCC participant at the DCME level, only at the Dito Tel. So right now, it is 100% eligible to go theoretically, not that there are any plans of doing it, because again, the fact that Dito CME is raising its SRO means that it has
Mm.
every plan of keeping its shareholdings intact for the moment anyway.
Mm. Now, well, of course, going back to the SRO, no, there have been lots of concerns, but for this SRO, can you give us a little background where it's going, the proceeds?
on the proceeds, we've made a clear representation in our perspective that 80% of the proceeds will go to Dito Telecommunity as part of Dito CME's capital call share, no, in raising equity for the telco. And the telco will use those funds in our continuing rollout of the network in order to provide a more compelling challenger capability into the local mobile telco industry. The 20% of the proceeds we will use as additional equity and to fund general funding requirements that we have on our many digital businesses. Three are, as we discussed earlier, Ralph, three are already in operation. Luna Academy, an online learning platform, only Filipino online learning platform. We have Acuity, our digital and mainstream advertising, entertainment, and media company. And we have our Unalytics, a very encouraging new startup that actually enables businesses with analytical tools and solutions that help them engage their customers more intimately. So these are the three that we are nurturing in the portfolio of our investments at Dito CME. And there are others that we are currently in talks with, and the 20% will go towards building these new digital capabilities on top of our investments, of course, in the telco.
Mhm. Now, Dito CME also has a media element, right, sir? So, any updates on that?
Well, the media element of Dito CME is in Acuity. Uh, it actually serves as our digital and mainstream advertising, entertainment content, and media company. First for the group, the many enterprises across 8 industries in the Odena Group for all their advertising and media content requirements, including Dito Telecommunity, which we are servicing today, and for the rest of the market. Interestingly, one of the most active businesses in Acuity is our good inventory and stronghold over digital and mainstream out-of-home advertising spaces. Over 10,000 of that all over the country, and that we're utilizing them uh, actively now for not only within the group but outside the group. And particularly interesting in a political year such as ours, there are many candidates that have actually engaged us, no, in their own campaigns. So that's activity.
Mm,
That's the activity business in D2C.
okay. So, not media in the sense that you're producing content, but more on ads, things like that.
On the content, we do have capability to produce ad content, no? And
Mm,
also partnering with bundling entertainment such as e-games and pushing this to our customers, no? Bundling e-games and putting that very lively platform to be able to push branding for the companies that are in our portfolio
mm.
as
Speaking
one
of
of the
e-games,
examples. Yeah.
mm, speaking of e-games, both Globe and Smart are into e-games. What about Dito? Are any plans on getting into that as well in the
Yes,
future?
yes. We have partnered with the Lupon, no? One of the more active
Mm,
e-games platform, and we're bringing that to Dito Telecommunity. A lot of the telcos have partnered with the e-games industry. That particular sector is a very dynamic one. It has actually a whole lot of viewership, particularly in the digital consumer market, age group of anywhere from 15 to 35-year-old market, and certainly that's a rich market not only for telcos but for a wide array of consumer brands. So it's
mm,
critical that we partner with eGames and the other platform that delivers e-games to the market.
mm. Now, going back into the pandemic, I want to ask both of you, what were your major learnings and what were the main challenges that you have experienced? Would you consider this the hardest thing that you've ever encountered in your career, or not really? This is just one of those bumps that you're uh, just trying
It's
to
a very big bump.
get over with.
I'll,
It's more than a bump.
maybe I'll start and then I'll request Jojo to pitch his own view. I think it's a mixed bag of both of risk and threats, and as well as opportunities, particularly for our investments in digital and the telco. No? The pandemic obviously slowed down on the. I'll start with the negatives first. It has slowed down the economy to a certain extent. It has actually suspended and created a lot of displacement in terms of the job market and incomes. Uh, it has actually caused a lot of underemployment within the economy because of the many lockdowns that are necessary to be implemented by the government, and therefore it's a negative impact to the market. It has really slowed down the market. On the other hand, though, and maybe this is more strategic and sustainable, the pandemic had actually brought forth massive digital adoption by the marketplace. which a realm which used to be solely accessible to the income, upper economic bracket of the market. The pandemic had brought forth certain digital solutions that enable the necessary new lifestyle to be able to cope with COVID-19, not only through convenience, not only through cost-effective platforms, but also through platforms adopting digital platforms because they are safe. No? One particular, I'd like to cite key examples. First is the way people do commerce, the way they do trade, the way they buy and sell, and the way they pay and facilitate such commerce have been largely transformed into the digital platform. And we've seen that across all segments, even the lower end segments. The way the people buy, for instance, common things like load had moved dramatically from legacy person-to-person touch points in the retail sari-sari stores now onto online. The way people transfer funds to their loved ones, no? Our own kasambahays in the homes used to rely on money centers, on person-to-person money transfers to their loved ones in the provinces. Now use fintech platforms to be able to facilitate that at much lower friction cost, no? Than it was before. The way people actually uh, work, no? Such is in precisely the space we are in today. We don't need to be person to person, Ralph, to be able to facilitate this activity, no? And the way
Mm-hmm.
people actually um, um, entertain themselves, whether through multimedia. Instead of theaters, they have adopted a lot of entertainment apps. And you know who these are: Netflix, YouTube, and the other entertainment platforms. Through e-gaming as well, and many other platforms to which people uh, actually spend their time. The way people also uh, consume what used to be going to visit restaurants have gotten in the way of deliveries, no? And thus created sub-industries like logistics companies like Grab, Food Panda, etc., etc. Now, because these platforms are cost effective, convenient, and safe, uh, they have actually displaced, you know, many legacy uh, processes in the old lifestyles. No? And that even outside of the pandemic, moving forward, I think even if the pandemic disappears tomorrow, a lot of this new digital adoption will not go away, albeit the fact that I think it will even progress as technology itself progresses. So those are the upsides in my view.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you'd
If
like
I
to
can
add on
add?
that, sir?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, Eric has already talked all about the market and the consumers, so I'm not going to touch on that. Maybe something I'll touch on is on more directly involving Ditotel, no, which is the operating company. You have to remember that we actually built 2,000, wait, no, we built more than 2,000 towers in 1 year at the height of the pandemic, which in itself is already quite an achievement. It's a Philippine record, and it was the target. We would have liked to have built more, but there lies the issue about the pandemic, no? Because the pandemic basically impacted a lot of the physical activities that are required. And when you build towers, that is a physical activity. And we're not just talking about the workers, because the workers, being a telco, they were part of what we call the necessary services. No, the required. So they were exempted from the restrictions and all of that. But guess what? We ran out of cement, ran out of rebars because all the companies that were producing all of this equipment were closed because their workers could not come in and do the construction. And then there were issues with local government where on specific areas, specific barangays or specific towns, for example, the mayor simply closed down the town, said, no, I don't care what the uh, national government regulations are, we're not letting you in. So all of those challenges came to play in 2020 and 2021. But as I said, we were able to achieve our targets, and we are on track. So as far as achievement goes, it just made the achievement that more, I guess, impressive. Number one. Number two is that from the very beginning, Ditotel was designed to be a digital company. So which means that there were no plans then, or more so now, to follow the traditional path of building more offices, more stores, increasing the retail network, dealing with distributor to sub distributor to the local distributor down to the store manager and all of those things. Of course, we're present there, no? But what happened was that the whole intention was to go digital. So which means that options were going to be online. There would be more investments in terms of the digital options in terms of doing commerce, which includes buying the load, having it delivered, and all of those things. And this was before we had anticipated, before anybody knew there was going to be a pandemic. So the fact that the pandemic hit sort of, on hindsight, became not an advantage, but preparing for that kind of business model actually helped Ditotel probably more than maybe than the other companies, so or other businesses for that matter. So on the whole, if you look at it on hindsight, the pandemic could have, well, okay, affected the Ditotel in the sense that we probably could have done better for sure, but a lot of the preparations we made, not for the pandemic obviously, but were designed to really what survive or be able to wade through all the problems that we're facing today, including the work from home situation. Since we are digital and a lot of investments were made even in terms of internal systems, then our people were able to work effectively from home. I'm the CFO, so which means that most of my people in accounting and treasury really did not need to go to office, in terms of being able to access the MSS or the management systems and make all the approvals and processes virtually wherever they are. I'm able to approve on my phone and on my laptop. I could be in the golf course or in Boracay and still be able to do all those transactions.
Mm.
But on the negative, there is no substitute for face-to-face meetings. And my personal view has always been, or my personal style has always been to be more engaged with the people I work with or the people who work for me. There is you cannot it or rather not cannot, but it's extremely difficult to brainstorm on Zoom.
Mm.
It's
Agree,
designed
agree.
and the stuff, right? But try having a lively discussion on Zoom. It is next to impossible. No? So
Mm.
and then mentoring becomes an issue, coaching becomes an issue. So obviously, 100% working from home is not sustainable. I mean, even in a digital environment, you would need to have some kind of hybrid situation. So
Mm.
moving forward, well, which was again the design of Ditotel from the very beginning was to really have a hybrid situation. We have breached 1,000 employees, I believe, as of 2021, and I think the target for 2022 is to double that number. But
Mm.
if you look at the kind of workspace that we're investing in, it's significantly less in ratio compared to, let's say, our incumbents or maybe even other businesses, because we believe that a lot of the work will be done offsite. So it was
Mm.
designed that way. Our systems were designed that way, billing systems, management systems, and the like.
Mm.
Maybe I
Now,
just like to add, Ralph, last point, the macro impact of all of this moving forward. I think even the incumbents have reported increases in mobile data consumption the last 2 years, 2020 and 2021, because of the adoption of digital by the wider market of about over 50% each, no, on mobile data increase. Now, how does it impact us in particular investment in Dito telecommunity? This digital adoption um, is just going to continue, such that we are the country in the world that has, prior to Dito Telco, two mobile players. The other neighboring countries of ours have at least four or five players. So with that kind of increase in adoption, there certainly is room, no? Room for a third player to thrive. No? In this new digital age that's growing, particularly as we see the technologies transition from 4G to 5G in the short and medium run.
mm, yeah, but the growth is in broadband as well because me personally, I downgraded my plans already. My cell phone plans already. I mean, I barely use my phone. I rarely go out. But we improved the capabilities of my broadband here in my home. So what's that gonna mean for Vito now that there's growth in broadband and competition? There's Globe, there's PLDT, there's Converge, all the other players out there in the fixed broadband space. How are you gonna compete in that space?
Yeah, maybe I can take a stab at
Actually,
that.
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Okay, sorry. No, I was just going to say, well, that's true, right? Right now, particularly since everybody's working from home, broadband becomes more, actually, think about it, more critical than mobile. But of course, at some point, people will have to go out of their houses. So I'd say that the importance is for both. Number one. Number two is that sure you can invest in broadband if you can get it, right? I know people in Quezon City who are getting fixed broadband and their speed and reliability is terrible to the point that they're actually using Ditotel mobile as a hotspot. Of course, what we tell people is that you actually can get a relatively inexpensive CPE from Lazada. I think Huawei has one. You can stick, which is
Mm.
compatible with our network. Stick the SIM inside, and you have broadband with at faster speeds. So, I guess the point I'm making is at the end of the day, speed is speed. Whether it is broadband or mobile, then it doesn't really matter. It becomes a question of choice in terms of lifestyle. Number one. Number two is that yes, definitely broadband is a market that is going to be important, and we've always said that Ditotel is not a niche player, no? Which means that we plan to roll out services, the full menu of services that the Filipino people are used to, which would include broadband. So to say that it would be crazy not to go into broadband. However, the chunk of the market right now is, as you said, fixed, no? Fixed wire fiber, basically fiber broadband. The problem with fiber broadband is that you need to install the fiber, which takes a lot of time and it's a lot of capex. Not to mention that there are inherent problems with fiber that they're subject to breakage. And then for those of
Mm.
you who were affected during the last typhoon, especially those in Visayas and Mindanao, if you will notice, everybody was down except Dito. All right. So the
Mm.
point I'm making is that it's getting to a point, we're reaching an inflection point where connection is the name of the game. Broadband and mobile merely becomes the ability to make it to be either mobile or nomadic, meaning fixed.
Mm.
The fight between uh, fixed wireless or fixed wire again becomes a matter of what's available. So just because you have fixed wire in your area doesn't mean that it's actually superior to mobile. At the end of the day,
Mm.
the pudding is in the tasting, right? So if you think about it today, and I think most people are doing it, they're actually getting two providers. So they have a main provider, and then there usually is a backup. You're not gonna have a backup of two fiber connections. That would be very expensive. So normally you would have maybe fiber, and then you'd maybe have something on a mobile situation. Now, the problem is that if you use your mobile phone as a broadband device, then you're limited to a hotspot. And for those of you who are familiar with it, hotspot is basically good enough for only one room. Broadband, if you use a CPE, can basically create a network that is wider than well, basically good enough for your entire house, right? So, having said that, again, the intention is to come out with broadband. It will come out very soon. So we will be launching that very soon. For obvious reasons, I cannot specify the exact details of that, but definitely it will be coming out. And with the intention of providing competitive quality again, whether that's fiber
Mm.
or fixed wireless. Well, in the end, do you really care? It doesn't matter, right?
Mm.
Oh, by
Okay,
the
okay.
way, for the lower end of the market, like you yourself said, like you're spending more in your broadband that you've lowered. I'm assuming you've not cut your mobile. The lower end of the
Mm.
market, unfortunately, do not have that benefit. They need to choose one because they can't afford both.
Mm.
So again, it goes back to the point that if you invest more heavily in terms of your broadband, then you may not have enough money left to put it in mobile. But if you have mobile, then in theory you have both to a certain degree. As I said, I've discussed this discussion between using a mobile phone and a CPE. So one can argue then that you can actually have both, right? Particularly if you have a prepaid plan, then you can have a prepaid wireless access at home that will be good enough to power your kids' online learning and the online schooling, and you while you do your work from home. And then the minute you step out of the house, you have your mobile phone.
Mm. Now,
May I add to
other
that,
than
Ralph? If I may
yes, sir,
add to
go
that,
ahead.
there are
Go
over
ahead, sir.
100 million Filipinos, and if you look at the average household of five to a household, there, there must be some 20 million households. No? They say about 22 million households in the Philippines today. If you take out the poverty line of subsistence level of 30%, and 70% would in this digital new digital economy and new digital marketplace, 70% would require a broadband connection in the home. No? So that's about 14 million homes that require broadband in the home in some shape or form. Now, being an archipelagic topography as a country, wires will not reach all of those 14 million homes. Uh, fixed fixed line broadband, while currently superior, admittedly to mobile, no, cannot get into those 14 million homes given the topography of the country and, to Jojo's point, the economic capability to pay. No, um, as we speak right now, I think there are less than 5 million fixed broadband connections of all the players to the home. That leaves you with easily, if you believe that there are 14 million homes that will require, uh, there's still a ways to go on connecting these homes, and the route is certainly through fixed wireless on mobile networks. So, having said that, just a last few bits on mobile capability. Um, 4G actually delivers up to 100 Mbps and certainly can compete, particularly if you're in the countryside where the wires cannot reach and there are less density users to create congestion over the network. Now, when you go to 5G, that's precisely where the proposition is, apart from the other use cases. No? 5G actually competes toe to toe with the kind of throughput that fixed can deliver. And with greater adoption by the world, China being at the forefront of it, and then India, as you get to closer to over a billion people. In China, at the end of the year, they over 700 million people have already adopted and are using 5G. As more and more people in the world use 5G, the price points of devices come down and the service actually goes lower. And therefore, you could see in the short and medium run adoption of this in the homes through fixed wireless means and not necessarily through fixed.
Mm. Now, the pandemic is clearly a market mover or actually ano ba, tagaharang ng ng developments as well. But another market mover out there is the upcoming elections. Now, this I gotta ask, what's the elections gonna mean for Dito CME, Dito Telecom, and of course I gotta ask this. The third telco was approved. The third telco's bidding process was made under President Duterte, and with his exit this upcoming May, will this have an impact on the business?
The short answer should be we hope not. No? As a business, and I've been in corporate life the last 40 years, it behooves every business to be as apolitical as possible. And the only concern should be in service of the public that and the customers that they cater to. No? Having said that, I think the third player, as I mentioned earlier, let me backtrack. We're the only developing country in the world with two mobile players, and certainly there is public good in having a third one challenge the incumbents in terms of service. Truth to tell, if you look at the kind of services that we had prior to the appointment of a third telco, I think the rise and the becoming of the third telco came as an offshoot of customer clamor themselves of wanting service. No, there was congestion, if you remember, 2017, 2018, that prompted a lot of consumer clamor, no, for better services, and that gave rise to the government actually putting up the bid for the third telco. Now, even before we had done commercial launch, I think the public good that the third player has done is that it put actually the incumbents up their toes, and they've done so by putting more capex, no, into their operations. If you look at their guidance capex prior to the third telco, they were spending anywhere from 35 to 45 billion a year, no, as capital expenditure. When the third telco was announced, the incumbents actually upped their capex spending by as much as three times, and therefore you have already seen the improvement, drastic improvement of broadband, mobile broadband speeds in the country from below 10 Mbps, which were slugging vis-a-vis country peers at that time. Now you're seeing the speeds go up anywhere from 35 to 45 Mbps, and certainly that has done a lot of public good for consumers. Now, going back to the elections, we feel that a service like this that serves the public good should not have any changes. Add to that, I think the legislators have also favored us, and the government has favored us with another 25-year franchise. And good government dictates that if it serves the public well, there ought to be no change in the business of Dito CME and Dito Telco.
Mm. So no
Yeah,
change, no
yeah,
change meaning
yeah.
no,
Could I?
no plans of
Right.
selling out at all, or at least, I mean, those speculations, you're turning that, you're shutting it down. Those
Uh,
kind of talk.
with speculation to sell out. If you sold out now,
Yes.
you'd lose. You'd lose a lot of money.
Yeah,
Okay, number one.
sell out or shut
Yes.
down.
No,
Uh, I don't think so. These
but yeah, if I could just add a bit, just to answer more directly your point. No? In other words,
Yes.
regardless of who wins in the election, here's the basic point: is that is there anything that Dito Tel? Okay, I'm not going to talk about Dito CME, but let me talk about Dito Tel. Is there anything that Dito Tel is dependent on government for? I mean, is it dependent on funding? If it was depending on funding, theoretically, then whoever takes over the government after the election theoretically could put that at risk. Number one, is it dependent on
Mm.
any kind of existing legislation that is pending? Meaning, sorry, if it's dependent on any legislation that is pending, which could then be denied, so to speak, by the incoming government. There's none. The 25-year extension has been granted. The current laws and well, if, including the SPA, right? The PSA, sorry, is already been well, it's not yet in law, but it affects the whole industry. So any changes in the regulatory environment theoretically would affect all three.
Mm.
It would be illogical to assume that any government would make something that would be detrimental to only one telco. I mean, I don't know what that could be. The only thing that it is dependent on, for example, would be probably government contracts to put up towers in government-owned properties, but that's no different than what Globe and Smart are doing. So again, not taking aside everything else that is dependent on the government outside the industry, there really is nothing else left. So with that said, that regardless of who wins, even if they, for the sake of argument, became, let's say, antagonistic towards Dito for whatever reason, that from a purely regulatory and legal framework, there is really nothing that is at risk, so to speak, at least on paper anyway.
Mm. And finally, now we don't have much time. What will we expect for this year? For both Dito CME and Dito Telecom, what products should we anticipate? Anything that you'd like to announce that you're planning to do this 2022?
well, um, allow me then. I'll probably pass on to Jojo if I missed out anything. On the biggest investment that we have in D2CME, and that's a telco. I think we're managing quite well in terms of the strategic plans. This is not a sprint but a marathon. Uh, Jojo had mentioned come June or July this year, the third audit, technical audit will happen, and the telco is confident that it will meet and surpass even the hurdles of 55 Mbps speed. Continue to meet that and be in 70% of population coverage, no, by that time. No? The funding, as Jojo said, is in place. And if you look at the transition of the telco in 10 months commercial rollout, it had uh, successfully won over 5.3 million subscribers. I think we're in for more encouraging performance as we roll out in more areas. Now, as far as the digital businesses are concerned, we're very bullish on the continued execution and winning over of customers by the three digital businesses that we put up, Luna Academy, Acuity Global, and Unalytics. And we have very ambitious targets for 2022 to expand this business more. And as we speak, I cannot as yet give you specifics because they're still in the works. We are in talks with a couple more parties into expanding our digital portfolio investments. So, and that should come in 2022. Joe, you
Mm.
may have
Yeah.
something else to
Well,
add?
just for Dito tell, just again, we will continue to. Eric already mentioned it, right? So we will continue to build network, full steam ahead, and with that, it's just a matter of physics, right? And the subscriber base should continue to grow. So that just meaning basically it means just business as usual. So we will continue to be as aggressive as possible on that side. Having said that, everything else will be determined by the consumer. So we will have a lot of surprises this year. This is going to be a banner year for us as far as we're concerned. It'll be our first full year of operation. If you recall, we launched in March, only in two cities. And NCR was basically launched in June, and even then, it wasn't really a full NCR launch yet because for obvious reasons that the footprint in terms of the coverage was still quite low. So this continues to be built up. But in 2022, this year, it'll be a full 12-month worth of operation. So again, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting, and we will see. And the what we can promise as far as Dito Tel is concerned is that we will continue to surprise the consumer. Because why? Because we listen to the consumer. Today, we only have prepaid. We only have three promo plans and not even regular plans yet. So obviously, the regular plans will come out this year. Broadband will come out this year. Again, I am not at liberty to discuss specifics, but it will come out really, really soon. Other variants in terms of the mobile service will come out. And I think people will be pleasantly surprised with it when we come out. The idea here is to be customer centric and agile. And we are being a digital company and with no legacy issues, we're able to turn around quite fast.
Mm. And on that note, thank you so much, Sir Eric Alberto and Jojo Ong. Looking forward to the full menu that you guys will offer for this year and the other business, the growth of the other businesses under Dito CME. And on that note, that has been another episode of Business Sense. I'm Ralph Rivas. Thanks for watching.